I'm Chris Sims of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation, where we fight for lower taxes, less waste, and more accountable government. I'm here with my friend and colleague, the newly minted federal director of the CTF, Franco Terrazzano. Franco, you're still in Calgary right now, but you're keeping a close eye on what's happening in Ottawa as you pack up your boxes and move that way. What's new with the Governor General situation? It was messy for a long time, but what's happening now?
Well, we just got news that Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, he's going to be getting a short list of replacement candidates for the new Governor General anytime now. And so, what? That seems to me like the perfect time to start reining in some of the outrageous perks that the Governor General is getting, right? Let's get some haircuts going here before we actually get a new person into that role. And of course, I am talking about the annual retirement pension or retirement payment, whatever you want to call it, of about $150,000 every year. On top of that, the Canadian Taxpayers Federation has been shining a light on the expense account for former Governor Generals of about $200,000 per year. Again, that's for former Governor Generals. And here's the little cherry on top is that the Governor General gets to continue to expense taxpayers even 6 months into their death. So talk about some extremely outrageous perks. And I think now is the perfect time to really kick the Governor General off the taxpayer gravy train.
We deal with a lot of expenses here at the CTF, dumb ones especially, but I don't know if I've heard anything dumber than you still get your office expenses paid after you're dead.
Yeah, I don't know anyone who gets that. And here's the thing is, do you know too many people who get an expense account from their former employer? Anyone?
No.
Anyone? Bueller?
No. I'm just imagining that right now, calling up the TV stations and radio stations I used to work for. Hey, can you buy my pens? No, that would not work. I did find it interesting with the CTF here. Our investigative journalist, James Wood, dug up some documents through Access to Information, and it looks like even the bureaucrats who deal with the Governor General were actually thinking of reading her the Riot Act, of trying to get her to save money and to quit wasting so much on the renovations at Rideau Hall. If you get bureaucrats worried about saving money, you know you've got a serious problem.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, those renovations were hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? That's a big bill. But to add the insult to injury for taxpayers, Payette didn't even move in. She didn't even move in to Rideau Hall, even though those renovations were so high. And to your point, I mean, when you got some Ottawa bureaucrats who are worried about wasting taxpayers' money, that's when you know that taxpayers really need to hold on to our wallets.
Yeah, for sure. Here in Vancouver, my neck of the woods, we unfortunately own the podium most of the time when it comes to bureaucrats blowing money. But now they're taking it a step further. I probably mentioned this to you months ago, mobility pricing or transport pricing. They keep trying to cook up this scheme in Vancouver of screwing drivers out of their money by using tolls in some way or another in Vancouver. Well, now Vancouver City Hall bureaucrats are going a step further. They're actually outsourcing their waste. They're spending more than $1 million to hire a consultant so he or she can figure out where to put this toll wall downtown. Right now, it's based in the core of downtown Vancouver, but they want this to spread way out the Fraser Valley out to Langley. So yeah, right now, folks, if you're watching this and you drive in the lower mainland of British Columbia, hang on to your wallets and better yet, pick up the phone and tell Vancouver City Hall to stuff it, to cancel mobility pricing for sure. Now, you were mentioning something to me earlier this week that things are actually rolling forward on this equalization thing in Alberta, that there's going to be a referendum. Can you update us on that?
Yeah, it's some good news here for Alberta taxpayers. We've been in this equalization fight for quite some time. We are having the Alberta referendum on equalization this October in conjunction with the municipal elections. But now the Kenney government is getting the ball rolling. They just introduced the referendum question in the House. And one of the reasons that we're really pushing so hard on this is because a clear majority on a clear constitutional question will help push the feds and the provinces to the table to really hash out these grievances on equalization. Maybe just as important is that a province-wide referendum of this nature is really going to put the spotlight at a national level on the real legitimate issues with equalization. Of course, for taxpayers in places like Alberta, where we pay our federal taxes but don't get any money back through equalization, this has been a huge money drain, billions and billions of dollars in terms of costs. but also for provinces or for taxpayers in provinces that do receive equalization, it's a bad program for them too, right? Because it allows those politicians to rely less on good policies that grow their own economies and allows them to rely on the tax dollars coming from other province taxpayers.
Yeah, for sure. If you've got so-called free money guaranteed coming in every single year, why bother improving the economy of your province? Now, you mentioned a few things there. You're talking about clear reasoning, clear questions, referendums. That reminds me of the Clarity Act, which of course brings about questions of Quebec, questions about our role in the Federation. Are you getting questions like that in Alberta? I know, speaking as a Western Canadian, many Western Canadians don't feel heard. We don't feel heard by Ottawa. And I think that this equalization issue is a good example of that. Are you getting those questions too?
Well, I think that this equalization referendum is a good way to really put the spotlight on the many challenges that are happening in the West, in particular in Alberta, right? In Calgary, I know everyone in Canada has been dealing with COVID-19 for the last year, but in Calgary, it's really been a hard time for 5+ years. So many job losses, so many pay cuts, so many businesses hanging on by a thread. And it really feels like the federal government has been making these tough times tougher, right? They rejected Northern Gateway. They moved the goalposts on Energy East pipeline. Then you have the No More Pipelines law, the discriminatory tanker ban. You've got the carbon tax, plans for a second carbon tax. The list goes on and on and on. So it feels to us like our federal government is either not listening or that they don't care. And why it's so important then to have this equalization referendum and to get the provinces and the federal government into the room together is so that we can hash out these grievances in a democratic way and in a way to bring everyone together and to try to work towards some solutions here.
And actually have this issue taken seriously. Now, you sent me something earlier this week that looked like a joke. It's about a global tax cartel, basically a mandatory minimum global business tax. Now, I don't know about you, but I usually save this sort of talk for weekends with my friends about global cartels. What the heck is going on with this one?
Well, unfortunately, it's true. It's
actually
what's
real?
happening. It's what's happening. Our finance minister, Chrystia Freeland, when she was at the G7 finance minister's trip, she agreed to back a Biden administration-led initiative, which is to put in a global minimum business tax of 15%. And you know what? If the U.S. government wants to raise taxes on businesses, we should let them, right? Fill your boots, do it. But in Canada, this shows that we're moving in the wrong direction. What we should be doing is we should be pushing for lower business taxes here in Canada, right? Let these job creators keep more of their own money so that they can expand operations, so that they have more money to get more Canadians back to work. And one of the important things to remember here is just how important it is to have tax competition across countries, right? Because that's what actually makes politicians stop and think about the consequences of their crazy spending, right? Because if they have to raise taxes too high in Canada, well, then they could be at risk of saying goodbye to businesses, saying goodbye to investment, and saying goodbye to top talent if we allow tax competition to thrive. So that's the bad news. The good news is that it's still a long ways away from actually being put into place. But we just thought this was an important thing for our audience to know, and to know that the CTF is going to be fighting it.
Yeah, that's a big red flag, and it's important that you brought it up. Actually hadn't even heard about it, and I work in these circles. Now, it kind of defies common sense, though. Isn't the idea to make sure you're competitive, that you're putting your rates lower than the next guy so that you get more business? That's how it usually works in the market. Doesn't it defy common sense to try to jack up your business tax rates in lockstep? Don't you want to attract businesses to your country?
Well, certainly for taxpayers who want to see lower taxes, right? Lower taxes on businesses. Because here's the thing, businesses don't pay taxes. It's people who pay the taxes, whether it's through higher prices as customers or whether that's through less job opportunities and less opportunities to see your wages go up. So we have to remember that it's people who pay taxes. It's not businesses. Now, of course, for these politicians who are dealing with massive debt all across the world, I can kind of understand why they may not want to reduce business taxes, but certainly for taxpayers, we should be pushing for tax competition. We should not be pushing for a tax cartel.
Yeah, let's not have a mandatory minimum global business tax. It's insane. We need to say that out loud. But these are insane times, my friend. Franco, thank you so much for the chat. And folks, if you're watching this and you're furious, great, act on it. Go to our website right now, taxpayer.com. That's where you can stand up and be heard.